Theology Unplugged.
Hey friends, welcome to Theology Unplugged. I'm Michael Patton, and we're doing a question-answer session today, so hopefully you enjoy this and we get some questions that you may have asked, you may be asking, or you're going to ask. I think these are good questions we've got today. I don't know how many we'll get through, but let's go ahead and get started. But before we get started, don't forget to like this, press the like button wherever you're at. Make a comment too. So if you make a comment, it helps the algorithm. Just do that. That helps out a whole lot. So that also, don't forget to go to my Patreon. My Patreon right there. Just take a picture of it or however you do that. Or you can go to Michael Patton, see Michael Patton, put patreon.com/see Michael Patton. I'm pretty much see Michael Patton everywhere you go. Facebook.com/see Michael Patton. X.com/see Michael Patton. What other things are there? Everything. Instagram, TikTok, all there. And I'm fairly active on all of these. Facebook primarily, that's kind of where I, do my social interaction, keep up with things beside my Patreon. But that is how I get my support. So if you can, that would be great. If you believe in what I'm doing, if you want me to keep on doing stuff like this, some of you have been with me for 20 years, and I thank you so much for that. And sometime, if you enjoy this, if you figure out, those of you who are new, you figure out you enjoy this, at least head over to my Patreon, check out my writing, and maybe become a member. I do a lot of free stuff too. And if you become a member, there's a whole lot of free stuff you get, theological stuff. So let's go ahead and get started. This first question here is, and I'm trying to, some of these I've reworded just to make it to where I can understand them a little bit better. But this one I really like. I mean, I really sympathize with this. It says, should I be worried that I don't really want Jesus to come back right now? I mean, that's about as honest as you can get, right? I mean, you're a Christian and you're told in church that Jesus is coming back. One of the primary characteristics of Christians that that love the Lord and follow the Lord, that you admire, that you're being discipled by, they all want Jesus to come back. They talk about it all the time. And you scratch your head and you say, why don't I want him to come back that bad? And I think this is perfectly understandable. Wait, let me make sure I get through the whole thing. Like the resurrection sounds great, but I'm sort of not in a rush for it to happen. That's true. I mean, I do remember this exact thought. Now, I don't have it quite as much, and I'm not saying I don't have it at all, and I'll explain in just a minute. But I remember whenever I was young, I didn't want, like my mother telling me whenever I'm 14, 15 years old, before I even drive a car, before I go out and, experience the world in any sense, become an adult and go off on my own, because you know how it feels. You want that stuff to happen. And I remember thinking, gosh, I hope he comes back, but not right now. And I've seen this with my kids as well. It's very hard for you whenever you are younger to think in such a way where you have your ultimate hope in his coming, because you got a lot of, you like this place. You like what God has done here. You like the earth. You like life. You like creation. You like everything that he has given to you. You like the hope, the aspirations, your goals, your initiatives, everything, because the future looks great to you. Now, I don't think there's any reason why you should think, some people go, am I not that good of a Christian? Do I not get something? I don't think there's any reason you should think that. Let me give you a passage of scripture real quick that would that has to do with this. Let's see here. This is in 2 Timothy. It says, henceforth there is laid up for me a crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, will award to me on that day. And not only to me, but all those who have loved his appearing. I guess the question is here, do you love his appearing? If he appeared right now, would you say, yes, I'm so excited, finally, I can't wait? Or would you say, oh man, not quite yet, not quite yet? I think, here's the deal. I think whenever we experience what God has created in 6 days, that he said was very good, and we see it as very good, there's nothing the matter with that at all. I mean, creation is great. who we are right now is great. It's not always, and we have our better times and our bad times, but whenever there's a lot of hope in front of you, whenever there's a lot of life in front of you, all you're doing at this point is saying, I want to experience what God has put in front of me. I'm in the image of God. I'm a creative being. I'm a being that has aspirations. I'm a being that has drive. I'm a being that wants to accomplish. And you see Jesus coming back is kind of like that. Okay, time's up. We just started the game and you don't even get to play. Whenever you have that kind of stuff, I think it's it's more normal for you to think this way. Now, I'm not saying you can't think this way whenever you're my age in your 50s or 60s or 70s. You can do it all the way until the day you die. I hope that we have some type of aspiration, some type of goals and dreams. I hope we see something in front of us that we can accomplish. I hope we're excited about the day. The problem is that we live in a fallen world, a broken world, a world that is not the way it is supposed to be. And because of this, we often have hopes that this will end soon, especially at certain times. At certain times in our life, whether it's our health, whether it is just the sinfulness of the world, our own sinfulness, and we just want to get out of it. We want Christ to come. Now, it's usually whenever you're beat up. You enter in the game and you're not going to say, Coach, can I come out on the first play? You're going to say, Coach, can I come out after it's, third quarter, fourth quarter, and you're pretty hurt. You can't walk very good. You're limping. You've torn ACL. You're losing the game, and you don't find much hope. You're down 42-0, and you're like, hey, Coach, just take me out, put in the second string. I think that's kind of the way we think. But to play the game, there's nothing to feel bad about wanting to play the game at all, because that's what you're built for. You're in God's image. You are built for life. You are built for life here on the earth. So much so that your hope after Christ comes. See, that this hope for his coming is not just hope that he comes and takes us to heaven, and then we're in heaven and we stay in heaven. Sometimes Christians have that thought of what the afterlife is like. It's just an ethereal existence where we're playing harps and sitting on clouds, just something completely different than what you feel now, what you do now, what you are now. I remember people used to tell me whenever I was young that whenever we get to heaven, we will be singing before the throne of God for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And I was scratching my head. Number one, I wasn't going to tell him I was scratching my head because I guess that's what you're supposed to do. If you love the Lord, you can't wait for that. Now, he did say that we will love it whenever we're in heaven. He did say, I know that this sounds kind of boring, because that was my first question whenever I heard about eternity of heaven, just like you probably. Isn't it going to get boring? And then whenever he told me this is what we're going to be doing the entire time, I was like, man, that's going to be really boring. And he said, no, what's going to happen is you're going to love it. Because once you get to heaven and you sit before God, that's all you're going to want to do. And I get that in a sense, because whenever I see Christ, I will fall down, and I will want to. And I will want to kiss his feet. And I will want to I'll probably cry a lot. But I don't think that's what you're built for, is staying in that not in that position, like prostrate before the Lord. We're always going to be forever in our hearts prostrate before the Lord. But he's got other things for us to do. We are not going to be in heaven 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, just sitting before the throne of God, worshiping. He's got his seraphim angels to do that. We are created differently. We are created for something else. We are created to expand his glory, to share. He's sharing in his glory. And most importantly, it's the hope of his coming whenever he comes and sets up his kingdom here on the earth. And we're hoping for sin to end, both within ourselves and within the world. And so whenever you're thinking this way, don't think of, man, I'm scared that Christ is going to come. Think of him coming and setting up his kingdom. Now, I know there's still some things that you guys may get, especially young people, may get sad about or scared about because you want to have a family. You want to, you want to get married. You want to have kids. You want to just do the things that families do, and you're scared once you get to heaven, that is not going to be present anymore. You're not going to have that opportunity. So it's kind of over. Everybody else will have their families, and I won't have my family. Here's the thing you got to understand about God. He does not give us these drives, these passions, these hopes, what it is that we want whenever it comes to a family, just to say whenever you get to heaven, no, don't have anything like that now. Whatever he has for us is going to be completely fulfilled in him. Everything on this new earth, you're not going to miss out on anything, I promise. There will be nothing on the new earth with our new bodies that you'll say, man, I wish I could go back and could have done this first, except for maybe not sin so much, not place so much of my burden, so much of my sin on Christ at the cross. But that's a different story. It's the opportunities that will be in front of us on the new earth that will meet our exact aspirations today. And that's part of the trust that we have to have in the Lord. I mean, it's like, do I believe that? Do I believe that he's going to kind of pull the rug out from under me on so many important things and so many things that are good that I want to do? And he's not. We just have to trust that whatever he has in heaven, there will be something that not only, or on the new earth, there will be something that not only that mirrors it, but mirrors it in absolute perfection. That's what we trust. So whenever we're hoping for his coming, it's not a hope in saying, let's just get out of this earth. Let's get up to heaven. Let's get on those clouds. Give me the harp. That's not it. The hope is for him coming here and setting up his kingdom, eradicating sin, and for so much of who we are and what we do every day, whether it be relationships, whether it be work, whether it be accomplishments, goals, desires, all of those things will continue in very much the same way as they continue today. He's not God, and I've said this many times to you all, God did not see that Adam and Eve sinned in the garden and immediately switched from plan A to plan B. Like, man, I had all these things planned and you messed it up. So now we're not going to do any of them. Now I got to fix this and we're going to go to plan B. It's going to be completely different. He is in the process of restoring plan A. What was meant to be at the very beginning, the way it was supposed to be, the fulfillment of all things will come with Christ in the sense that it will continue on the way that it is, but without the corruption of sin. So, should you be worried that you don't really want Jesus to come back right now? I would say yes, only if you're thinking of it in such a way that you really don't want him to, that it's not in your heart to see him. I would worry about that. I would worry about you not realizing who he is to you, and in this sense, not having love for him. But if you're worried in the sense that you're thinking, man, there's some things I want to accomplish here, Lord, then there's nothing wrong with that at all. But the thing you got to adjust your mind is that in plan A, which stays at plan A, it will continue to where we can accomplish all those things that you've always wanted to accomplish. Now you say, what about kids? What about being married? Those kind of things. I promise you, whatever it is, however it is that it's fulfilled, I mean, number one, we don't know how it's going to be fulfilled, these things, but those desires will be met 100%. And you say, well, what about, my current kids? What about my current spouse? Trust me, you're not going to lose out on anything. Those relationships will still be there. He's not just going to pull them all away and create some equilibrium in relationships to where everybody, you love everybody. You'll love everybody, but you're not going to love everybody the same. I mean, it's not going to be the same relation. It's not the same person. That's not the way God created the world. He loves the uniqueness. The uniqueness will continue on. You will have special relationships with people. You will have deeper relationships with people. You'd be very surprised how much things are going to remain the same whenever we get to the new earth. I really do. I think I'm convinced of that. We'll have two surprises. Number one is how much things are different because of the eradication of sin, what it feels like not to be in a sinful world, what it feels like not to be in a sinful body. But number two is how much it's really the same, because we love what God created here. We love who we are. We should. And so if you are not desirous for him to come back because of that, that's just natural. And I'd be worried if you thought we were going to go to an ethereal plane where you will just be bowing down to before the throne of God 24/7, and that's what you wanted. I mean, that's not what you're built for. We're built to be in fellowship with God. We're built to worship him forever, but worshiping him does not mean we sit before the throne and do that 24 hours a day. Okay, so that's question number one. Question number two here. Does God get mad at me for not trusting him when life gets hard? And honestly, why is it so tough to trust him when things fall apart? You'd think that's when the Holy Spirit would be most with us. I understand this discouragement. I really do. I mean, it's like whenever you want to do a good thing, and you want the power to do the good thing, and you have your God who says all authority has been given to me on heaven and earth. You know, Christ is sitting on the throne, and then you want to trust in him, but you can't. You just can't. You pray to him, and you say, Lord, help me to trust in you in this hard time, and then nothing changes. You don't trust in him, and it feels very bad in so many ways. Number one, because again, you think this is a good thing that God should accomplish, especially if he could. Why would he withhold trust for those people who want to trust in him? And so whenever we go through these hard times, we wonder why in the world are we not trusting in him whenever we're praying for it? But then another thing we do is we just feel bad because we're not. I mean, it's just, why aren't we trusting him? Now, here's the thing that you have to think of whenever these difficult, and I don't know what's being spoken of here, but whenever these difficult times come, it's like, it's in those difficult times when you have the greatest opportunity. And we will fail the most in those difficult times. We will fail many, many times before we ever even begin to succeed. I mean, what good is it? Here's the thing. What good is it for us to trust in Christ, trust in God, when life is going easy, whenever it's not that hard? Is there any virtue in that? Is there any real virtue in that? Christ says, Matthew chapter 5, "For if you love those who love you, what reward have you? Do not even the tax gatherers do the same? And if you greet only your brothers, what more are you doing than others? Do not even the Gentiles do the same thing?" This is the reason why I bring this up, is because it's like we're surprised. We want things to be really easy. Like, it's easy to love somebody. It's easy to trust God. It's easy to make it through life. And it's easy to share the gospel. It's easy to do everything that we're supposed to be doing. And if it's not easy, then we feel bad about it because it's hard. And what Christ says here is, in this situation, in this world, the opportunity only comes whenever it is hard. And I try to remember this. I'm not good at it. I really am not. I have to remind myself. Just a couple of days ago, I was reminding myself of this. I mean, especially whenever and I don't want to get into this, but whenever the election was coming up, and you start to think through, what if so-and-so gets elected? And then in your heart, you start to fear, and you're like, I'm just going to trust the Lord because he's still in control, right? But then you start panicking again, and you go through this process over and over again of trying to trust in him, but it's really hard for you to. And you say, why can't I? I mean, is he not on the throne if somebody else gets elected? Now, for me, things worked out better, but I was worried. I was really worried about the direction of our country, and I'm trying to talk myself into, okay, our country's just falling apart. It's going to go in the wrong direction. I've got to trust in the Lord. And I encourage those of you who think the other way, that the country is falling apart because of who got elected, that you're scared. I see a lot of scared people. And I understand that fear because I can imagine coming at it from the other side. But this is the opportunity that you have. What good is it if you trust the Lord whenever everything is easy, whenever everything is going in such a way that there's no reason not to trust the Lord? These are opportunities that God has given us that we fail to recognize, that we wrestle our way out of, that we don't want to face. We don't want to face the fact that God gives us great opportunities whenever your enemy is in front of you, whenever a fearful day is right ahead of you, whenever things are not going well in departments in our life that we think that would make it easy, that would make it that would make life so much more progress. We would have so much more progress in our life if things would just go according to this certain pattern. We don't see the opportunity, and therefore we miss it. And I miss opportunities all the time. I do. I tried my best to think right whenever something comes up, this is a good thing. This is a challenge. Challenges are very good because in challenges, there are ways to respond that I would never have the opportunity otherwise. I mean, can you imagine right whenever we become believers that suddenly everything is easy. Everything goes our way. Everything goes perfect. There's not any problems, not any obstacles, not any enemies, not any hatred, not any hard times ahead of us. At that point, there would be no virtue in being happy and being trusting in the Lord. There would be no virtue in anything we have in front of us. There'd be no opportunities would be completely gone. And basically, whenever we're asking God to take away all the obstacles, there's nothing wrong with that because it's not the way it's supposed to be. We want to be in a world, we want to be on a new earth where there are no obstacles, where there are no enemies, where it is not hard. But this is the only place that you and I have the opportunities we do have. And we'll be sorry one day when we look back because we don't have any more obstacles in front of it. Those kind of obstacles that come from enemies, obstacles that come from fear of difficult times in front of us. When we don't have any of that, we have no opportunity to trust the Lord. So every time something comes up, you need to try to train yourself. And it's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to work overnight. You'll have to do it over and over and over again. But every time a hard, difficult situation, difficult person comes before you, thank the Lord. Say, thank you, Lord. I would not have had this opportunity if this hard time had not arisen. So I thank you for this hard time. Now, please help me to respond well. Please help me to respond in a way that glorifies you, that influences those around me. And when we fail, do it again. And when you fail again, do it again. I read earlier that the Christian life is a life made up only of daily repentance. And what does that mean? That means daily failures. Daily falling down and getting back up. And I think our life is made up of just getting back up all the time. And whenever you fail to trust the Lord in these circumstances, recognize that and turn to the Lord and say, Lord, next time, help me to see this as an opportunity. And you'll fail. And then the next time, say it again. And then you'll fail. And keep on doing it. Because eventually, every once in a while, you will. It'll work. You'll see it as an opportunity. You'll start to love that person that's unlovable. You'll start to do kind things to your enemy, and you'll start to trust in God whenever it feels almost impossible, whenever the obstacles are so great in front of you. But what you'll say is, thank you for this obstacle. Thank you for this problem. Thank you for this health difficulty. Thank you for, it can go wherever you need it to go because God is in control of all things. And in some ways, every hardship is an opportunity that you will never get again. And I'm glad that they will be eradicated one day, but I do hope we do what's right in the time that is given to us, because the influence trusting God in those hard times, loving your enemies, can have. So what good is it for you to trust God when everything is going well? Don't even the sinners do the same. What good is it for you to trust God whenever everything goes according to plan? Don't even the Gentiles do the same? Think of it that way. And I'm not saying, again, this is an easy thing. It's something I fail at every single day. But I do try. I do try to think this way. I do try to look at this and say, this is an opportunity. It's an obstacle. Every obstacle is an opportunity. Okay, next question. Number 3, why did people in Jesus's hometown reject him? Now, I did write something about this just recently, about a prophet not being welcome in his hometown. Why did people in Jesus's hometown reject him? And why do people closest to us sometimes not get what we're about either? I guess I should have read through these more fully beforehand. I did read that first part. I thought the second part would go the same. Okay, why did people in Jesus' hometown reject him? Let me go there. A prophet is not welcome in his hometown. I actually just wrote a blog on my Patreon about this concerning me. Now, every time I went to Dallas Theological Seminary, and I moved from Oklahoma, so went across the Red River, went down just south, went to seminary, and graduated from seminary, and then ended up getting a pastorate job at a church in Frisco, Texas. And it was great, because whenever I was in Oklahoma, I was not a good person. I mean, I'm not saying I didn't straighten up before I left. I wasn't running from my problems. It's just that for the most part, growing up, I was not a good person at all. I mean, I'm talking really, really debaucherous. And I love the Lord in a way, but I always told him, hey, listen, I'll be back. I promise. I know you're my only hope, but I want to experience the world, kind of like what we were talking about beforehand. But after I decided to really start following the Lord, I went to seminary, and I changed my life a whole lot. And after I got out of seminary and started pastoring, I thought, man, this is quite the turnaround. So, it's just gonna be my testimony that I'm telling people about. And that it's a funny story if I keep on going with that, because of, what I did later on with, anyway. But, so whenever I was in Dallas, I felt like a pastor. I felt like I deserved to be there. And not deserved. I don't want to put it that way. I felt like I was called. That's it. I felt like, man, this is what God has called me to do. Be a pastor. I love it. I love teaching. And I love the testimony that God has given me to be able to give to people. But then whenever I'd cross that Red River, coming back home anytime, and I would be getting into my old environment, around my family, around my friends, around all these people that I grew up with, they know exactly who I am. They know exactly what I've done. And the moment I crossed that Red River, I'd feel like a fraud. I'd feel like, oh my gosh, this is just crazy. All these people know me. I mean, I've been living this life back in Frisco, Texas, where the only thing they know about me is since seminary and since I graduated. And that felt great. But now I'm going home, and nobody's going to believe what I do. I don't even have the heart to tell anybody, because they'll start laughing. That's the way I felt every time. Now, I tried to go back and continue being a pastor, and a lot of the stuff had to do with me. It didn't have to do with the other people at all, because people were very proud of me, even my friends that I wouldn't think would have been proud of me. It's just, God has blessed me in that area, but I still felt bad. Now, here's the reason why people know better. That whenever you come back into your hometown, people know you. People have seen you grow up. They see your frailties. They see you just grew up just like one of them. What makes you think you're any different than them? They know you because they have seen you all your life. And so a prophet going back into his hometown, the proverb, a prophet is not accepted in his hometown, has to do with the way people see you. Whenever there's an over familiarity that can hurt your witness, and it's not your fault, it's the fault of the people. It's not your fault necessarily. Now, here's the deal, is like, let me get the closest I can get whenever we talk about my closest family, whenever I talk about my kids and my wife or my sisters, and how much they know me and how much they can look at me and say, yeah, I know who you are. And I'm not saying they're anything like this. They're not. They've always been so good to me. But it's that feeling, it's that understanding that people really know who you are. And so a prophet is not welcome in his hometown, I think in a lot of cases has to do with the prophet himself, not necessarily the people. However, having said that, I don't think a prophet is welcome in his hometown many times too, because they do know you. They're over familiar with you. They see you as ordinary, not extraordinary, because they've seen you all your life. And for people like me, it would be they know the real me. They know I could go put on a facade. I could go put on a show. I could go remake myself and go to another state, and nobody else none of them would know, but they would all know back home. Okay, so they really know me. So would they accept me as a pastor? Would they accept me as a prophet? Now, again, I use that as an example because the way that I felt more than anything else, not the way that people treated me. But with Christ, whenever his brothers and sisters and mother all looked at him and said, you're crazy, whenever he started preaching, I mean, I don't know how much he told them beforehand or how much he knew. That's a great question. Growing up, how much did Christ know about his mission, who he was? Now, by 12 years old, we know that he says, should I not have been at my father's house? He was at his father's house, the temple, and he was talking to all the people there, teaching them, and they were amazed at his wisdom, and he understood that God was his father. But I don't know how much he understood of his mission or how much he told everybody. I know that Mary had him, and she had him as a virgin. She knew the miracle. She knew the angel that came down and said, this is who is in your womb, the Messiah, the Son of God. She knew that the wise men came from the east, probably a big band of many people coming to see your son. And it says Mary treasured all of these things in her heart. So she knew so much, but yet at the same time, there came to be a point where they were calling Christ crazy. And they were trying to get somebody to get him and pull him out of his situation where he was teaching people, where he was preaching and saying, get home. You got to get home. This is getting crazy, right? And this is where you have this passage that says a prophet is not welcome in his hometown. And so this is the general, this is the best I got with it whenever I answer this. And I'm sorry it seems kind of scrambled, but taking all of this stuff that I just said, I think that creates the proverb that a prophet is not welcome in his hometown. Now with Christ, the difference is, here's the big difference between me and Christ, me crossing the Red River and Christ going back to Nazareth. I am a sinner. People really do know how screwed up I've been, right? I mean, there are people who know me a lot better in Oklahoma than they did in Texas, but it should have been just the reverse with Christ. But it's just this general attitude, and I think it has to do, again, with over familiarity, but also jealousy. I think his brothers and his sisters were like, who in the world do you think you are? Brothers and sisters will always be like that in many ways, especially the younger they are, before they, grow up and really learn to appreciate each other more. But I think that was going on. It's odd to me that Mary, his mother, was doing that. Was she embarrassed? Did she think he had gone crazy? I mean, I don't know what was going on in her mind, but here's the deal. They were all familiar with him. That's why a prophet is not accepted in his hometown. That's why it is a proverb. That's why it says this about Christ. I don't know if that touched on what you were looking for, but that's the best I got. Okay, let's see here. What's all this stuff in the Bible about evil spirits? About evil spirits in the Bible. Is that even something we should care about today? I thought this was a different question. I could have sworn it was. Well, anyway, what's with all the stuff in the Bible about evil spirits? Is that something we should care about today? Yes, I mean, obviously, I don't think that the Bible was speaking of evil spirits in a condescending type way back then. Like, oh, these people think there are evil spirits, so we'll go ahead and act like there are whenever we really know there's not, and there's an explanation for everything, and that there, mental illness can cover all the people that we have thought were possessed beforehand. I do believe very much that our battle, Paul says this, our battle is not against flesh and blood, but against powers and principalities and evil forces in the heavenlies. And I think that we, especially in the Western world, don't think about that much. And we discount it, and we do not have spiritual warfare as part of who we are. We don't, I mean, for one thing, whenever Christ said, whenever he gave the Apostles' Prayer, the Lord's Prayer it's called, but it's really the Apostles' Prayer because that's how they're supposed to pray. Out of the 6 things he prays, one of them was, deliver us from the evil one. I mean, out of only 6 things, the apostles come up to Christ and say, teach us how to pray. And, he's given them a model prayer, an outline, but in that outline, one of the things that he says out of the 6 is deliver us from the evil one, the evil spirits. Deliver us from Satan. Deliver us from the powers of darkness. That goes right along with Paul that says that's our battle. Our battle is ultimately evil forces. Yeah, I might ask you and say, how many times recently have you prayed that God would protect you from Satan? Now, I say that myself. I mean, I have to remind myself constantly to say that because it's not something natural. I don't see Satan. I don't think about him much, and I'm not sure that I should be, except for understanding in the background there is a massive battle going on. There is a massive war. And those of you who scoff at this, I mean, I don't get your scoffing. I don't get why in the world you would ever scoff at there being evil spirits. There's no reason to do this because just because you think, man, this is the evil spirit thing that Christians believe, that is so bizarre, and I can't believe that. I just like to believe in what I see, what I touch, what I feel, those kind of things. That is something that all you're doing is saying, I will believe anything because it's normal, because I see it all the time, not because you understand it. You see, we don't understand one thing. We don't understand anything that goes on in this world. We don't understand gravity. We don't understand light. We don't understand. I mean, we put it all together and try to do the best we can with it, but everything is a miracle. Everything is in some sense this bizarre world we're living in. When we're communicating, I mean, I saw something the other day about language and how absolutely complex language is in general. And how it works with your brain and how it communicates, and then how it really is. There's such a miracle to language, to communication, to using your voice to articulate something that makes sense to somebody else. Now, it's not doesn't seem like a miracle to us or, a spiritual world to us simply because it happens every day, because we just grew up and all of a sudden we're talking, and that's just the way things are. Just because things are normal, just because things happen all the time, doesn't mean they're not miraculous. They're not supernatural. They're not spiritual. And just because we don't see things doesn't mean those things don't exist. Because all it has to do is be introduced. All God has to do is, like Elijah did to his servant, and say, God opened his eyes, and then all of a sudden the servant's eyes were open, and he saw all the chariots and all the angels all around him. all God would have to do is to do that for a second. You would say, man, I really missed out, because there's nothing I can say about that, because there's nothing I can say about anything. I don't understand how anything works. Everything is a miracle. And so therefore and everything is bizarre. And therefore to say that evil forces going on in the background, Satan and demons and angels fighting and whatever it is, these powers and principalities, that's just weird. So therefore I'm not going to believe it. And, I think it's too bizarre to believe. The bizarre factor doesn't have any bearing on reality. Just because you say it's bizarre, just because you say it's weird, that's not an argument at all. The argument I have is from Scripture. The argument I have is from Christ, who rose from the dead, who says there is a spiritual battle going on, who engaged in that spiritual battle, who cast out demons, who talked to demons, demons came to him and said, it's not our time yet. Stay away from us, Son of God, please. It's not our time. Who asked to be cast into a herd of pigs? How bizarre is that? All it has to do is happen, and then everything's done. But we just trust. I trust that this is right. I trust that there is a spiritual battle going on. I've never seen any angel. I've never seen a demon. I've never seen anything that is remotely close to that. I'd love to, I think, but I don't have to. Some people have. Some people, they have their stories. Their stories are incredible. But most of us are not even going to have those. We're just going to have to trust that there's a spiritual battle going on. Now, having said all of that, all of this to say, there is a spiritual battle going on. Now, what do? There's not a whole lot the Bible tells us, except for to put on the full armor of God, to take up the shield of faith that can extinguish all of the flaming arrows from the evil one, from Satan, to put on the helmet of salvation, to put on the shoes of spreading the gospel. I mean, there is basic statements that say you're just supposed to have faith. You're supposed to trust God. You're supposed to move forward. You're supposed to have courage. You're supposed to tell other people about Christ. That's how you get into the spiritual battle. And that's all I can tell you to do, is say there is a spiritual battle going on. I don't have any Latin book that gives you all the phrases and the calling on Michael the archangel and whatever it is to battle them. I think that's bad tradition. It's easy. It's easy in this sense. The shield of faith. The shield of faith is what we need. And that is just trusting in God. Trusting that God is in control, that he is more powerful, that greater is he who is in you than he who is in the world, because you can overcome anything. Okay. I don't know. Let's see here. I thought I had another question that was close to that, but I don't know. How much time will we have? I'm going to do one more. Let's see here. The Reformation was a huge deal. No, I don't. Sorry, guys. Jesus told us to let our light shine. So why do so many of us hide our faith? What's that about? I don't know. I mean, because we're scared, because we don't want to be rejected, because we don't have the shield of faith, because we don't have our shoes shod with the gospel of peace. Whenever you're heading in a different direction in life, whenever Christ isn't your main goal, whenever you're not truly a disciple of him in that sense, don't say you're not saved, we all screw up. But whenever you're not, you can't expect to not be scared in those circumstances. So we're not living our life according to his plan. And it's hard. It's hard to enter the battle. It's easy to stay out. You got people who never get in the battle because they don't believe in the battle. People who believe in the battle but never get in. You have people who are in the battle but don't really know they're in the battle, and so they're losing, and they're not getting up, they're not even trying. And then those people who are in the battle every day getting back up over and over again with lots of wounds. And you got to ask yourself, am I in the battle? If you are not in the battle, then of course you're not going to really feel like sharing your faith. You're not going to sit there and it's not as if I go out to every person on the street and say, hey, are you interested in spiritual things? And, go through the Romans road or the four spiritual laws. But I do in most circumstances. I try. No, I don't do it in most. I do it in some. Whenever I want to share the gospel, whenever I was standing before somebody, I will say, God, give me an opportunity somehow. Give me an open door. I'm not going to force any doors open. I'm not. There's certain circumstances where I see the door open because of who I'm talking to. Like whenever whenever you go to, for some reason, whenever you're in circumstances where you're dealing with people who are in deep need, they will listen to you a whole lot more. But my neighbors here knocking on their doors, it's not going to do any good except for push them away. So I just pray for opportunities. I say, Lord, give me an opportunity sometime to talk to them about you. Now, I say that right now, but I don't remember the last time I even prayed that about a neighbor. Now I feel bad, but I need to. I should. I do remember not too long ago, somebody that I was engaged with, God gave me the opportunity, and I remember praying for it. And after I prayed for it, then I looked for it, and I tried to open the doors. I try to get other people to open the doors. It's a lot easier doing what I do, because a lot of times people ask you, what do you do? And once they ask me what I do, then I tell them, and that's the ball's in their court right then. I teach theology, and if they know what it is, they're either going to be excited or standoffish. And if they don't know what it is, which is the most circumstances, they say, what does that mean? What is it? They've asked me a question. The door's open. Sorry, you asked. So that's an open door. There's different ways that you can open doors, and that's kind of the way that I do it whenever I'm with people, is I try to get them to ask certain things. Like I said, it's easy for me because of what I do, but I think we can all find little ways that make it easier for you, to where whenever somebody else asks, rather than you pushing, it's so much better. It really is. I think that's really the way we should all do it. Unless they're just open doors in general. Like whenever, you go to other countries and people, I've been to countries where it's just like they love American. Once they find out you're an American, they want you to come over to their house and just talk to them. Tell them about who you are, what you do, and they'll listen to every single bit of it. I'm not sure if those are truly open doors, but we used to take them all the time. And it seemed to be that God would work. And it seemed to be because there's a humility among people that can look up to other people. If you're the type of person who you're always just trying to make sure you're better than everybody else, all you're going to be doing, you're going to look down on everybody the best you can. You're not going to listen to them. They don't have anything to tell you. That's a terrible situation. That's usually the people that we run into, at least in my circles. But whenever you get into circumstances where people are broken, where they're hurt, where they're poor, where they're in need, where they admire other people, then they'll listen to you. And those are automatic open doors. So why don't people feel like sharing their faith? I don't know. It depends on who it is. But I think in general, this is the situation because we don't really see it as part of our mission. We don't look for open doors, or we have been in circumstances where we have forced doors open and kind of made fools of ourselves and don't really want to do it anymore. And I don't think forcing a door open is any good. I don't think standing on the street corner with a sign, John 3:16, or, the end of the world is very good. I'm sorry. I don't even think going to some places like some people do. And I know God uses us in spite of our methodology, even if that methodology is wrong. He does. Thank God he does. But I don't think going, walking down the street and asking people about the 10 Commandments and stuff like that, that's necessarily great. I know there's going to be a lot of you guys mad at me because there's certain people out there that do this and have done it for years and years, and they seem to have the effect that we think they're supposed to be having. I don't know. I think that it's forcing things rather than trusting God. I think there's a sense in which we live a quiet life prayerfully in our mind, hoping, praying that a door will open and looking for those doors. But if you're never looking for those doors, then you're probably never going to have one. And if you're forcing those doors open, you probably won't ever be successful. So it's, again, trusting God, saying, God, I'm in a situation here, mundane situation. I'm sitting here talking to this guy at the counter at 7-Eleven. And, you know, I if there's a way to open the door, please open the door right now. And I'll do what I can on my part. You know, and you can push, be kind to people. You don't understand how much that starts to open doors, how surprising it is sometimes for people to be genuinely kind, genuinely love people that are out there. I think one of my sisters is a great example of this, because she's just a genuine person who is always reaching out to people. I think they both are, now that I think of it, but one's just very able. She's quick on her feet. She gets along with everybody. Everybody gets along with her. And man, I'm telling you, there's doors opening all the time. But she has these other little ways that she opens the doors too. And well, anyway, I'm just saying certain personalities, it's going to be easier for you to open doors because people want to talk to you. You've got an attractive personality. And other people, maybe that's not what you're built for. Some of us have the gift of evangelism and some of us don't. So anyway, all of that to say what I just said, whatever it is that I just said. I should read these questions beforehand. Okay, let's see here. How much time we got? We're done. I'm done. I've put you guys through enough. But anyway, if you really like what I'm doing and you think this whole podcast was great, then go over there and support, like it, make a comment, do whatever. I hope you got something out of this. I don't know. Thanks for showing up.
Theology